It's back, kinda. This here is the Lenovo Yoga 7 Pro. Brand new model for 2020. I guess it says 2024, but I call it 2025. It came out like right as the turn of the year was coming around. So this is the 2025 model. This one here has the new Ryzen AI HX chip. This one here has the 365. It's one step down from the 370. So you also drop from the 890M iGPU to the 880M iGPU. What is this laptop? Well, if you watch my review of the Chau, which was a Chinese import, which is basically this laptop. I did that review in the summer, I guess it was, and it was one of the nicest laptops I've ever used in my entire life. I used it for many months, and I actually sold it to one of my friends who also fell in love with it. And then I think that laptop there was one of the nicest I've ever used. This is the same laptop. This is just the Western release of it, but it's an upgraded spec. So you can actually still get that laptop from China. It's called the Chau. You can get it with this CPU here, or you can buy last year's model. This one here is the Canadian American version, Western version, and now it has the Ryzen HX chip. This year is basically just some tweaks from last year, although it's released in the West here. AMD AI HX 365, very good CPU. There is one tier above that, the 370, which is a better CPU, but both of them are quite good. A bit of a bump from last year. The iGPU is also a little bit of a bump from last year. This year we get the 880M, which is a step up from the 780M. Still in the same realm, but a little bit of an improvement there. Not going to compete with the Ryzen AI HX 370 with the 890M, but still very, very capable. Very good for gaming, very good for processing. RAM here is 32 gigabytes at 7,500 megatransfers, very fast RAM. And then we do have a beautiful screen on it, 14.5-inch glossy OLED, very glossy. 1600p, so nice resolution on it. 100% DCI-P3, so great colors. And it's 120 hertz refresh, so it's going to look great. And relatively bright for an OLED at 400 nits. Yoga Pro 7, very slim. This one is the Ryzen AI HX 365. Fortunately, it doesn't have the 370, so it's not going to have the most powerful iGPU out right now, basically. But it's going to have one step down from that. So I suspect it's going to have good performance, but it's very sleek. Just basically looks like the same as previous years. No real change. Metal, all very premium. These are very premium laptops. And the build weight, 1,537 grams. It's still relatively light, a little over 3 pounds for what it is. That's good. Super, feels like kind of like a MacBook, to be honest. I know that sounds crazy, Mac owners, but Windows stuff can be that premium. This is metal chassis, metal bottom, metal top. That might be plastic actually to keep the cost down. Yeah, usually they use this like premium plastic on the inside. Otherwise, I guess maybe it's cost and heaviness. Some influence from MacBooks and that where it does what it's supposed to do, be very clean, very professional. These are rounded. The D-pads tend to be, and ThinkBooks tend to be slightly sharper. These tend to be a little bit more rounded. Ports are pretty good here. HDMI, 2 USB-C on the left there. Nothing on the back except exhaust down there. Right side, USB-A, headphone, camera kill switch. So you're gonna get 2 USB-C, one of them for power. USB 4 is on this laptop, so you can easily run a dock off of it. You do get a legacy USB-A, which is critical in my opinion, and headphone. To get inside these laptops is usually quite easy because they're a metal design, so they're very easy to pop the bottom off. However, you do need one of these star style. Getting the bottom off was so easy that I accidentally did it off camera. I just basically put my finger under there and pulled. The whole thing came up. That's pretty typical of these laptops here because they do have the metal bottom, so they're well structured. It's a thinner metal, but it is metal, so it does get some structure. Thermal pads there for a couple different parts. Inside the laptop looks pretty typical for what this laptop is. Nice big speakers on them there. Should sound pretty good. It looks like there actually might be a set of speakers under there as well, firing up. Nice big speaker there, so this thing should sound really good. In all honesty, this looks very similar to the Chau, which technically is the same laptop from 2024, just with a different chip. So this is basically the upgraded version of that. So if you watch my review of the Chau, I'll flash the spelling on it. It's Mandarin, but Chau was the same inside from what I can tell. Technically that makes sense because they are technically the same laptop model, just that this is one step further. So very, very similar laptop. However, we've now beefed up the CPU from 8845HS or 8840HS, whatever it was, up to the Ryzen AI stuff here. So we do have the CPU under there. We do have a slot there for a second chip there. In at least last year, there was a model that did have dedicated graphics. I think it was only available in China as the Xiaoxin. We'll see if Canada, US, West basically gets a model with the GPU. They may not even, I haven't seen it even in the Chinese market yet, so they may not just introduce it. It's just the same motherboard. But in theory, you might be able to get DGPU there, like a 4050 or, I don't know, maybe a 5050. Who knows what they come out with. But there's a possibility there. And if it is, it's going to be shared cooling. As it stands now, as an iGPU, APU model, it's going to run super cool because you do get a dual fan setup. These are the slimmer kind of curved fans from Lenovo that produce less turbulence and less noise, so they should run pretty quiet. 2 heat pipes there, and they're a little bit thicker than something like a G14, G16 even. So this thing should run very cool. You can notice there's no RAM on the motherboard. There's no RAM slots on it. It's soldered, so make sure you get the amount of RAM that you want. That's fine, in my opinion, because it's very slim. Just make sure you get 32 gigabytes. That's what I would say. You do get upgradable Wi-Fi on it as well. Very nice. And you do get one dumb/okay thing. There's a 2242 size NVMe here, not double, same as the Xiaoxin. If you watch my review of the Xiaoxin laptop, I'll put a link up in the corner above. Maybe I'll flash on the screen right now. What I actually did for that laptop is I took off this little rubber thing. This is just a rubber piece, doesn't do anything. I took out that screw there, not double-sided tape, but like a double-sided thermal pad, just a thick thermal pad, and used that to stick it down. And then I actually ran a 2280. And otherwise, you do get a nice big battery in it, 73 watt hours. It's a huge battery for what this chip is in theory. It should have really good battery life too. So it looks exactly like the Xiaoxin from last year. I think it looks fine inside because it's kind of a super compact design. I am always, just like last year, or just like the last model, I'm kind of irritated by that rubber thing being there. Not formally supporting a 2280, but at least they didn't, move this over here so it physically would go off the board. You can do a very minor amount of, just take that out, and you can put a 2280 in here. Getting a little messy on my desk here. You can see that it is the typical modern Yoga, Xiaoxin, there's different names for them, ThinkBook keyboard. They have 2 different variants. This one here is the rubbery texture. They have the exact same setup, which is more of like a plastic, premium plastic, but plastic. It almost seems random which one they put on what. I don't know why, but the layout is the same between them. I think I'm starting to lean a little bit more towards this rubbery one just because they feel nice, but I'm not sure if the endurance of them is better, but I don't know, whatever. Otherwise, they feel the same. It's just this is a super soft touch rubber. The other one has more of like a nice soft plastic or smooth plastic. These are probably my favorite keyboards now. The Legions are very similar, a little bit higher movement. There's actually a lot of travel on these here. You can see 1.5 millimeters of travel, even though the keycaps themselves are not very physically large. There's a lot of travel to them. They actually sit above the chassis here, and so you get a ton of travel and it feels very nice. So just like the other ones that I've used that are the same keyboard, it's the nicest ultrabook keyboard on the market. Trackpad is pretty big. I think the Yoga 9 series have slightly larger where it's like right up to the edge. It's getting to the point of absurdity. This is more than enough trackpad for me. Smooth texture, right? Feels nice. And the click is nice. Sharp click. So that's nice. So inputting to the laptop is fantastic. So they're a little bit different. This one has a little bit more vividness. It's a brighter screen. This one here is a little bit more like deep red. Probably won't show up on camera. They're both 100% DCI-P3. It just comes across a little different. Part of that is that this is a non-glossy screen. Non-glossy screens usually aren't quite as vibrant as a glossy screen. One of the advantages of a glossy screen, otherwise why would you pick one, is that the colors are even more vibrant on a glossy screen versus an IPS. So if you get the exact same screen in glossy versus non-glossy, whether it's OLED or IPS, the glossy is going to be a little bit more vibrant. However, it's super reflective. OLED versus IPS, if they're both high color space, I mean, the real difference, if they're the same, not glossy versus glossy, a lot of that's just going to be down to the blacks. So we can see that, bring that down. This one has good blacks. It's, not close to an OLED or mini LED, but it's good. This has absolute black, so it's fantastic. The reds in that are all basically the same. Again, glossies versus non-glossy. Unfortunately, I don't have a glossy. Unfortunately, I don't have a non-glossy screen with the exact same specs just lying around. But here they look very similar, a little bit richer in the dark, but they're so close. This actually looks more similar. If someone were to tell me which one looks a little bit more vibrant, I'd probably say ever so slightly the Lenovo, not because it's Lenovo, but because it's glossy. You're really going to notice in the blacks. They're both truly fantastic though. Yeah, so they're both good. They're both good speakers. The Yoga is better. So these are like just generally good sounding audio, enjoyable, good. I like them. The Yoga just sounds. All right. So what I'm interested in doing now is checking thermals and wattages and noise. We'll just use Cinebench to do this. You'll hear when I do the gaming portion, which I will do. What's going on with that? So we'll just come in here. There's different modes. You can hit Function Q to go through the modes. Performance, balanced, silent. They do allocate different wattages to the CPU, APU, so it will make a difference with Cinebench. Probably not a huge difference, but it will. It should make a pretty big difference with gaming though, but and noise, to be honest. So we'll go like that there. This is performance, fresh. It's been sitting for a while. So we're immediately boosting to, oh, get out of here. We're immediately boosting to 70 watts. I don't think it's going to stay at that, but it might. No, it's going to drop down. I think the system will be more static at around 50 watts, 55, somewhere around there. That's considered a relatively high watt for this chip. It can go higher, but it's fine. There's no noise yet. Actually, my house fan is on because it's winter. That's producing more noise. Okay, it's starting to kick up now. My noise floor is about 37 or 38. So it's not silent, but it's much quieter than a gaming laptop. Okay, just drop down into this mode. He'll just reset this for a second here. Balance mode, looks like it's going to feed the same amount of watts roughly. What did it drop? 5? If not even 4. Yeah, a few watts less. Thermals are around the same. It's getting a little bit warm, but it's, this is the type of chip this is in a relatively thin laptop. It's not throttling, that's what matters. I think it's slightly quieter, but I would say it's basically perceptibly the same. Silent. Now the watts drop down a lot, actually. 21. Now, this chip will still be performant at 21 watts, just so you know. The HX370 that I've had a lot of testing with, I haven't tested this yet, scales very well. In fact, some of the handhelds that I've tested, I have one that I'm testing right now, it still is very performant even at like 15 watts, even 10. The fan is on and I can hear it, but it's approaching basically it's approaching my room noise now. Looking at some benchmarks here, the actual scores for Cinebench are quite good. On silent mode here, we're getting 13,460. That's very good. That's similar to some last generation stuff on performance mode, so very good at those low watts. Going into the balanced mode, big jump again, 18,700. Actually outstanding performance there, considering it's just on balanced mode. Performance mode doesn't really add much to that. A few hundred points there, 19,136. So honestly, most of the time you can just leave this thing in balanced mode. It's still going to be incredibly performant for the type of chip it is and how low watts it is. That's where this becomes very impressive. The included SSD here is just a Micron SSD, some OEM Micron SSD, which I've never seen in a Lenovo before. So this might be a new thing they're doing. Middle range Gen 4, but it's a 2242 size, so that's to be expected. Probably faster for a 2242 size, generally speaking. Wi-Fi here, I'm in a bad area of my house with bad reception, and this is probably amongst the best that I've got yet out of a laptop, so very good Wi-Fi reception, very good performance there. And then looking at some 1080p YouTube with the full refresh, battery life, it's okay. We're looking at about 12 watts or so. That'll give you probably 5 or 6 hours. However, then I just basically dropped the screen refresh down to 60 hertz, and there's a huge jump in performance on the battery there, on battery life there. So we're getting 8-ish watts being burned on 60 hertz, and that's still 100% brightness, which will give you like 9 to 10 hours. So very good battery life, especially if you drop it down to that 60 hertz there. So definitely do that if you're concerned about battery. And then just kind of hanging out here, idling, messing about in Windows itself, not doing any heavy browsing or anything like that. We're burning a little under 8 watts here, so general use, kind of just messing around documents, word processing, that kind of stuff. Again, 8 to 10 hour laptop, so very good battery life here. Okay, here's a look at the built-in webcam. It's actually nice and rich for once. Usually these things are like washed out. Don't have a lot of light. There's a little bit coming in from the front. Most of it's from the windows from the side. And there's a light here doing a little bit here. And it's doing a pretty good job. It's lightening it up just enough. It's obviously not bright, but it's also not, washing me out, making me look really pale. So, and it's got a really good, huge viewing angle, to be honest. So, yeah, it looks like a good webcam, to be honest. Okay, I'm going to do some game testing for this video. Just so you know, I'm going to have a follow-up game testing video, specifically because I've never done the 365 AMD. I've done the chip below it with the 780M graphics, and I've done the above with 890M graphics. This is kind of in the middle, but more towards the lower of the two. So we're in camp here. We're using 60 watts. That's a lot. And we're getting 45. We do have performance scaling. However, we're also on medium, and this is rock solid. Look at those lows. Very good. Now we're going to go to a significantly more demanding area really quick here. We'll just go load. Okay, much more demanding area here. This is the last light in. Very demanding area. You'll see that frames drop down a bit here. This is still very good. Again, very high resolution, very demanding area. We're at 60 watts. What I'm going to do here is lower the resolution. So you can use a lot of scaling like I did here, performance. We can turn that off for now. The performance would be horrible. But we can go down to 1200p, 800p. Let's just try 1200p here. And honestly, just like the lightest amount of scaling, just really to soften it slightly, I'd say. So this is 1200p with quality FSR. And you can see the performance is actually, I'd say slightly better maybe. Around the same, maybe slightly better. You can do whatever looks better to you in such a demanding area. What I'm going to do here though is just turn that up ever so slightly more. We're just going to go quality rather than ultra quality, just like that. Big jump now. It looks fine, honestly. 1200p with quality FSR is going to be fine. Now we're at 50. You could turn it up more if you really need 60. Again, this is a very demanding area of the game, one of the most demanding. Right? Come into areas that are not so bad. You're well above 60 here. And another thing, reason why I tested this game, this looks horrible on camera, but it looks gorgeous to me. The game looks gorgeous to me. It's a very vibrant game, lots of colors. I mean, it all depends on the area you're in, but typically it looks absolutely beautiful. You're going to get lovely blacks. Obviously, it's a OLED screen. Turn that down so you see what I see. Just actually a gorgeous experience here. But let's come into an area that's not so dim. Here's a little bit of a more colorful area. Also a very tough area. Outdoors, lots of stuff over here. Beautiful reds and colors. One of the more demanding areas in the game. While we're here, I'm actually in this very hard to run area. I'm going to quickly try the different wattages. So this is performance mode. It's pulling a lot, 50 watts. Let's go like that. Balance, I don't think it's going to, it changed a little bit, down to 50. Performance is the same. Now let's drop it all the way down to silent mode, which I think will go closer to 20. Let's see. Got dim for some reason. Yeah, 20 watts. And still such good performance, 41. Again, this CPU here, APU, is now available in handhelds. Not, you know, the major like Lenovo and MSI and those guys, but things like the 1X. 1X, you can get this exact CPU. You can get it with a 370, HX 370, which I have, but you can also get it with 365. And you can see down at 20 watts, we're still well above what I anticipated, to be honest. Very good performance. I'm glad you watched the review or you skimmed right to the end. I don't know. I don't even know if people watch my outros. What do I think about it? It's fantastic. It's basically the Chau that I reviewed from the summer, which was one of the nicest laptops I've ever used. I ended up sticking with it for a couple of months because it was just so nice, and then eventually passed it off to one of my friends. This one here, gorgeous screen, 100% DCI-P, 1800p OLED screen. It also has 120 hertz refresh rate, so it's gorgeous. It is glossy, so if that annoys you, you may be annoyed by that. Not touchscreen or anything, but if you don't like glossy screens, maybe not this one. Very premium design, very thin, but very premium. It's just generally a nice laptop, good port selection, fantastic keyboard. One of the nicest keyboards you'll ever use, if not the nicest keyboard that I've ever used for now. Trackpad is amazing as well. Performance is outstanding. It runs well, it cools well, the audio is good. Should you buy it? Probably. I guess it's going to depend what you're looking for. If you need a dedicated graphics, I think maybe there's going to be a Chinese model of this that I could maybe import with a dedicated graphic setup. Maybe. We'll see if I can find it. But right now in the West, US and Canada, we can't get it. And I think Europe as well. You can't get dedicated graphics. But even without it, the iGPU is very performant. The 880M is very good. So if you're looking for an ultrabook that's going to be basically Halo level, give you really good battery, just really everything, just honestly, just really everything, consider this one. It's not super cheap, but I got it for a pretty good price on sale. Honestly, like I stacked some coupons. There was a sale on, you know, and you get some like Lenovo cash back, which was actually really high that day, like 3 times, whatever. So in the end, honestly, for what you're getting out of this laptop with no compromises, it's fantastic.